So it's the beginning of October, and we're going to have to start thinking about winterization. It's going to start to get cold here. Usually around October 31st is when the snow stays. So we have 4 weeks to get things going. So as you can see, the trees are starting to turn, the nights are getting colder, and this building, we actually used to have our trailer right here. Cue the old image, and as you can see, the trailer is located right there. So we moved the trailer out from here and took this front area here and attached it to the side of our addition, which was actually our daughter's bedroom and back room, like back living room, I guess, den. Since we had a trailer here, we had water. So our water system is here. You can see our pipe right here that comes up. We brought it up, and what had happened was the last year that we had our trailer, I had noticed that the line froze up a couple times. I had to take like a heater and put in the back water area where the hot water tank was, and the water came up. And I didn't really think too much of it because it wasn't too bad. It just, you know, I figured maybe the door wasn't sealed on the outside and it was getting a little chilly. We were building our house. I wasn't too concerned about it. But what I realized is this line, when it goes into the ground, what happens when it's installed, it has heat trace that's wrapped around the pipe. And then on top of that, there is kind of a styrofoam insulation that slides over it, and then it gets taped into place. Now what had happened was that heat trace had failed and was no longer working. I tried everything. I stripped it back a little further. I tested it. I tried it, and it just didn't work. So I thought, oh, what am I going to do? You know, am I going to dig up that whole line underneath this building? No. Me being in the plumbing industry and sales, doing pipe in the past, I knew some of the things that were available, and one of them was heat trace that actually went inside the pipe. So what I did here is I went and I picked this up from my farmyard supply store. You can see here, this is the heat trace, and it goes inside here with a gasketed connector, and then it runs down, and it runs probably about 25-30 feet down, as far as I could push it in there. So this area here is not heat traced, so this is just the temperature from the heat trace on here keeps this warm. So I had a connector like this on a couple years ago, and it had froze solid. Now the reason for that I'll get to in a minute, but what I've done here is this isn't self-regulated. You can buy it in self-regulated. I didn't realize that it wasn't, but that's fine. All I did is I took a timer and I hooked up the timer, and it's currently sitting on, it'll come on for 15 minutes, it'll shut off for half an hour, on for 15 minutes, off for half an hour, and it works fine. I might even extend that a little bit more, just because it was fairly warm. When it was on full throttle, it was actually hot water coming out of there. So, which you don't need hot water, just adds more humidity. Now, humidity, that's one of the things that we've figured out for our balance. We have no heating in this building whatsoever. We do have outlets. We can hang heat lamps. We can bring heat lamps down, which was our initial idea when we built. We thought, okay, we'll bring heat lamps out, we'll hang them down over the water, and, you know, just keep the water from freezing up, which is kind of one of the things we were shooting for. It makes it a little bit easier to have the animals. But if you have too much humidity, then what's going to happen is you're going to get growth. You could get mold in the inside of your building, and that is just horrible. So what I decided to do is I took a small 5-inch duct boosting fan that you can buy at a hardware store, and I went and I stuck that in the back. I ran that continuously all winter for the first year, and it didn't drop the humidity much below 90%. It was very humid in here, and we actually did start to get some growth on the ceiling right around springtime. So that next year, what I did is I went out and I got a proper large barn fan. Now this section here just above me here is a pipe. So you can see this is where our fresh air comes in. Now what had happened was I had put this on because it just came straight in. And of course, coming straight in, cold air descends, and it descended down, of course, right here onto my water system. So that's why my pipe froze. So all I did is I just simply popped an elbow on there. Now the air comes in and it goes down towards the door. And I'm fine. And it hasn't frozen. It hasn't frozen since, so that's been good. So that's one of the modifications that I did. The other one is that what you want to look into is the doors right here. So, and this door can freeze up. It needs adequate ventilation. So I went and I picked up one of these fans here. I just hooked it on. I could probably do something a little better. Of course, it's a whole power bar with just a switch on it. And you turn it on, and it keeps the circulation on the door, and it'll stop it from freezing up. So the ideal temperature in here is 1 degree Celsius, just above the freezing point. That way, the humidity is low enough, colder air doesn't hold as much moisture, and the water is not freezing. So that's the ideal temperature. So I was thinking, okay, well let's figure out how we can do this. So this mercury switch has been sitting in the box for 8 years, and I thought, you know, this is a perfect opportunity. So here's the mercury switch. You've probably seen them before, and what it has inside here is some mercury. So in this mercury is in this little tube, and as the temperature changes, the mercury actually makes the connection. There are connectors on each side inside the tube. So as that mercury goes over and touches the two, it'll make the electrical connection and it'll turn on. So this guy, you can see here, it's actually fairly warm. It's, I don't know, 17 degrees. So what I did here is this thing runs off of DC, low voltage DC. Inside this unit back here is a relay. This here is 12 volts, so it's an old, you know, I keep them around, just old power cables, because you never know when you could use them for whatever that comes up. Here's a prime example. So what happens here is this switch switches the 12 volt on and off when it makes that connection, because it can't take the full 120 volts. There's a relay inside of here. When it switches over, it turns the relay on, which the 120 volts is wired through that relay, turning on the fan. So it's kind of a simple solution, and I think it's going to work great. I'll be able to, you can see how this isn't straight up and down. The rule of thumb is when you install a thermostat, it needs to be up and down to work properly. I'm doing something a little differently here. The temperature on the bottom end of this is 10 degrees Celsius, which is way too warm for what I'm using it for. So I want to bring it down to its lowest temperature of just below 0, so that I'm able to turn this and calibrate it to the temperature I want in the wintertime. Once it's calibrated at about 1 or 2 degrees, then it'll maintain that temperature in here continuously throughout the winter. Now, the next thing is a light. You're going to want a light for your chickens. They require 14 hours of light a day. If you drop below that 14 hours, they're going to stop producing your eggs. So you don't want that to happen. So you want to fool them into thinking they don't live in this northern climate and the sun's out continuously, or at least 14 hours. So what I've done here is, this is an old timer for a, it's an automotive timer. It's a little overkill. But what I've done here is I've got the time set for 8 a.m. and it shuts off at 10 a.m. And this runs through over to my light over here, which we're going to go over and take a quick look at. This here is the light from the timer. So this is an LED light, and it has, I believe it's a 6,000 Kelvin, which means it's daylight. It's really white, a really white light, not the soft white. Plus this only runs on, I believe it's only about 15 watts. So it's energy efficient, which is great. You can see we have 2 broody hens in here. Now they've been in here for a couple days. This one here, she's a little monster. So you just go near her and she puffs right up. Hey girl? So what we did with her, so I don't know if we can see under here. Yeah, you can kind of see. I tucked a couple peafowl eggs under her that we had left over, and nobody was sitting. So I figured, well, if we got this broody hen, we are going to make use of her. Okay, so when it gets really cold outside, we'll bring in the larger sheep and goats, as I had mentioned earlier. As soon as it drops down below 0, however, we'll probably bring in the younger ones, like, well, Lucy is 2 years old, but she's one of our favorites. So we'll bring her in along with the lambs, the 4 lambs that we have. So Patsy is in here with the few little piglets she has left. Some of them have found some homes. Hey, Patsy, you're looking for dinner, aren't you? Always looking for dinner. This area in here is more than likely where we're going to put the 4 lambs and Lucy. We might even throw Lambert in here if it gets really cold. We'll throw her in here. And the goats will go in this area. This is more than enough room to house them. Lots of room back here. And then this area here, we may switch things up a little bit and put the turkeys in here. We do have a female Ezzy. I was calling her Izzy in the last episode, but it's Ezzy. Esmeralda, not Ismeralda. She's sitting on some eggs right now. She's sitting on turkey eggs as well as some peafowl eggs. So we're running a little bit of an experiment on that to see if she's going to hatch them out. They both have the same gestation days. So if the peafowl eggs are fertile, then they'll go through. So you've got all of the chicken areas with all of the nest boxes up in here. This door out here will remain open as long as possible. If it starts to get down to a temperature that's going to drop this room dramatically, we will probably close it and reopen it on nice days. This area here is where the peafowl and the pigeons hang out. So this again will remain open as long as possible, just so that they can be outside. You know, they don't need to be locked up inside. Okay, so this is our original rabbit hutches that we had built 2002, I think it was, the boys and the girls' hutch over here. So and what I had done is, and this is a neat way to start out, I thought, well, this is all insulated here, as you can see. You know, some of it's still open. We didn't quite finish it all off. But what we did, because it was all insulated, and we have, well, there's some missing here, but acrylic. So acrylic up here. So this is all the south-facing windows. So you get that sun coming in. So we left those open. In the summertime, we pull them down just to get ventilation coming through. I wired this up. This is always live. It comes through from another building. So we plug this guy in, and this runs over underneath to a thermostat that is down underneath the shelf, which I'll show you in a second. And then I ran it back to these. So now what happens is there's a hook up here, and you take your heat lamp and you hang it down, you put it down over your water area, and then you plug the end into this. Now there is another one of these over on the other side, which is actually here. Normally it's down, tucked in with that. But here's another one. So what happens is underneath here, this is just, and this isn't the mercury switch one, this is just the regular type thermostat. So you can see the two lines. There's the main line coming into it, and then it splits off of this and goes out one way and goes out the other way. And then you dial this into the temperature you want, but again, the low temperature is only 10 degrees. So what you're going to have to do here is you're going to have to open it up, and you'll probably see a little screw in there. So then you test it out in different temperature ranges, you adjust that little screw, and you get it to the temperature you want. So this is set, it can go below 0, and then I just adjust it up to the temperature I want, whatever temperature that may be, and it's right on a thermostat, and it's nice and easy to do. So this is the way we started out, and we may even use this area this winter. We'll just cover up those, put in some new plexiglass into the south-facing wall, and we'll plug in those heat lamps again. And then on a nice warm day with the sun coming in, it'll be warm in here, the heat lamps will remain off, but at night, if it gets down really cold, then they'll switch on. Okay, so that's about it. So that's our winter routine. Of course, it's not 100%. We'll probably make adjustments throughout the next month, 2 months, once the weather turns really bad. And I'll be sure to grab the camera and walk around and show you what we're going to do throughout the winter and how we maintain the building and what the temperature is and all that good stuff. So if you have any questions about winterization for animals, feel free to leave a comment below, and please subscribe for more new content. Thanks for watching.